AIKODE is an immersive action role-playing game created and developed by a solo indie developer who refers to themselves as ACE. Featuring colossal bosses and intricate combat mechanics, players can explore a vast world filled with diverse cities ranging from cyberpunk metropolis to steampunk-themed towns and even a faithful replica of Tokyo. In AIKODE, players can traverse the expansive world on foot, on motorcycle, or even take to the skies with their own wings. With hundreds of NPCs whose behaviors vary every day, an extensive relationship system, and different timelines, AIKODE offers a fully realized world where players can customize characters' clothing and hairstyle, play arcade games, decorate their homes, cook, fish, and engage in a myriad of activities. I'll admit, there were a couple of red flags that went up when I read this description. A solo developer making a 3D open world game where you can do anything? Sounds like it could be a little overambitious. But so far, I'm extremely impressed. Right off the bat, you can tell a lot went into this game graphically. The amount of detail is astounding for an indie game. The graphical quality was pushing my RTX 3060 to the absolute limit, and it's not like that's just because the game is loaded with unnecessary visual effects. Everything here looks cohesive, like it all fits together in this neat, dark, somewhat cyberpunk-inspired anime style aesthetic they're going for. The game has elements from Final Fantasy, The World Ends With You, the Persona series, the Yakuza series, and while I'm personally more keen on those former two rather than the later two, it leans heavily into the Final Fantasy and almost Kingdom Hearts-y vibes right off the bat, so I was pretty pleased with that. There are always a few things I like to do right off the bat in a game to see how much attention to detail has gone into the player experience. First off, I invert the camera's Y-axis. Hopefully that's always in the options menu, which thankfully it is here. Cameras are meant to be controlled with an inverted Y-axis, and if you disagree, let me know in the comments. Secondly, I have to try skiing. You know, that thing in third-person video games where you tap the left analog stick forward repeatedly and see how the character moves. This isn't really a quality indicator since a ton of excellent games like Final Fantasy X and most of the Tales of series look silly as heck when you tap the analog stick, but I just thought it was worth mentioning that the walking animation still looks good when you try it in this game. Next is standing sideways on an uneven surface. If the higher of the two legs actually bends to accommodate the uneven surface and snaps to the floor properly, you know the developer knows what they're doing. And finally, when I get to a cutscene, I want to be able to pause in the middle of it without inadvertently skipping it. I'm happy to report that yes, you can do that here. So far, we're 4 for 4. Excellent first impression. The combat is a little button mashy at first, but I feel like most action games are like this to start with. Then they tend to open up and present new opportunities for skills and different combos as the game progresses. Oh geez, I didn't know we were playing Pal World today. This is the kind of thing streamers live for, and I could totally see a clip like this going viral, which I'm sure Ace would be happy to see too. So I'm guessing that's at least partially why this option is here. Thankfully, you get the option to pet the cats instead of yeeting them after this. After this scene is when I started noticing a couple of minor issues. When you run past a series of pillars, the camera will quickly try and get in front of each one after the other, leading to some really jarring visual experiences. Also, there's some weird clipping going on when you try dashing into a wall. I can see where this would be a difficult issue to contend with, so I'm not complaining too much, especially since this is still an early build of the game, but it might look a little better visually if your character bounced off the wall in surprise, or put their hands up against it or something instead of just partially clipping through it. Outside of the combat, the movement is nice and satisfying. You get a basic run, a double jump that allows you to jump up nice and high, a dash, and then when they give you the ability to swim and to fly, it's also satisfying. Swimming handles basically the same as flying in this game. You can just hold forward with the left analog stick and use the right analog stick to control the camera and face the direction you want to swim and fly in. I don't know why more games don't handle swimming and flying like this. It feels perfectly natural and seems way more intuitive than using the right trigger to ascend and the left trigger to descend or something like that. When we get to the final boss of the demo, they let you choose between easy, hard, or no-hit difficulty levels. I chose easy because, you know, it's my first try and I don't know what I'm getting into yet. The first thing I notice here is the music. The music in this game is composed by two people, Kevin Simon and Shibuya64, but it sounds like music composed by the legendary Kingdom Hearts composer, Yoko Shimomura herself. It's so good. Also, the environment here is really cool. An absolute joy to look at. The boss fight itself is a little less satisfying. It controls fine, and they give you an additional shooting mechanic that makes the combat a bit more interesting, but I feel like the player feedback is a little lacking. We can see the boss's health bar, so at least we have a clear indication of how much damage we're doing, but the boss doesn't really react visually to the damage you're dealing to them. It seems like no matter what I do, it just keeps repeating the same animations. The animations are cool, and thematically I really like what's going on here, but mechanically I feel like the boss needs some extra animations to indicate when they're taking light damage or heavy damage, and also some more visual cues as to when they're dealing damage. This particular boss has a series of beam-like energy attacks that look a little too similar to the glowing aura particle effects that are already going on. So I have a hard time distinguishing when they're preparing an attack, or shooting out an attack, or just charging up or showing off or whatever. The story here is also a little too deep for me. I have no idea what's going on. But I also feel like that's intentional. The way they're constantly throwing these overly complex but also broad and vague phrases and lines of dialogue at you makes this feel like Kingdom Hearts or Nier Automata on steroids. But all in all, a pretty solid demo. Looking at this final cutscene, I don't quite understand how this was made by a solo dev. It just looks so good, and it sounds incredible. On top of the excellent music, the voice acting, primarily by Madison Lee, is also really well done. This is like something it would take a massive company like Square Enix years to make. And this is just one person? Crazy. But what do you think? Do you think you'll get the game when it releases on PC, PS5, and Xbox? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more from me, subscribe to the channel, or check out the Patreon if you're interested in some exclusive content. Thanks for watching.